Hello, everybody. You see, we've got the HookHausen paint on, so you know what that means. We're talking about pro wrestling today, and you can see all the hesitation, which means we're doing a first impressions. And today we're going to do something a little bit special. We're going to do first impressions on AEW's Double or Nothing 2022. If you're wondering why I didn't do a first impression right after I watched it, it's because the show ended at around 12:30 at night. I needed sleep. So we're doing first impressions the day after Double or Nothing. My feelings are largely the same as when I left the show, so don't worry, you're still gonna get the raw, unfiltered experience. Um, we have our notes here of each individual matchup, and for those of you who are uninitiated with professional wrestling, I will throw up the match card for each individual match. I will denote who's who if the names aren't clear or it's not clear who's who. And I will give each match an individual star rating before ranking the show overall on a scale of 1 to 5. So we're going to begin with the match that was on the pre-show that you could watch on YouTube. HookHausen versus Tony Nese and Smart Mark Sterling, featuring Hook and Danhausen versus Tony Nese and Smart Mark Sterling. Now this is a very basic tag team match. Not a lot of excitement going on. It was very comedic oriented because Smart Mark and Danhausen, they're naturally comedic characters. Danhausen with his very nice, very evil gimmick, pretty much being himself. There's really no other way I can describe Danhausen other than being Danhausen. And Smart Mark, he got a few good spots in. I know he's a pro wrestler outside of AEW, but within AEW, he portrays the character of the lawyer, and he's not as competitive as you would find him in the indie scene. Danhausen as well got a good showing too. He didn't really get one in his debut, and I was afraid of that because Danhausen is actually a fairly good wrestler, so it's good to see an audience finally get to see what he is capable of. Of course, on the technical side, the stars were Tony Nese and Hook. Tony Nese is a very talented wrestler, former cruiserweight champion for the WWE, very well-rounded wrestler, very fast, very technical, and Hook is amazing. There's not much else I can say about it. Trained by his dad, Taz, that just an incredibly talented individual. Um, and he has that kind of natural charisma, even where he doesn't need to say anything in order to grab an audience and, no pun intended, hook you in. But Danhausen, with all his charisma, it's great to have him talk for Hook. Like the two, Hook and Danhausen work very well together, which is something that you wouldn't really expect. It's a very big case of like opposites attract. It was a very short match. It's not a 5-star classic. I'm not going to lie to you, but it was short. It was sweet. It was funny. If you know what you're getting into, which is not going to be anything particularly special, then you're going to have a good time. But unfortunately, I would give this like 2.5 stars. Okay, we opened the show with Wardlow versus MJF. Now, this is a story that has been building up for almost 3 years now, ever since Wardlow came into MJF's employ. MJF treats everybody like crap, treats Wardlow especially like crap, so the vindication of Wardlow getting his revenge is especially there. This was hardly a match. It was a squash match. It's relying purely on the fact that you're feeling catharsis for MJF, as horrible a person as he is, getting what he deserves. And there's even a little bit of meta going on because outside of any storylines, I need to preface this very much so for the people who don't know pro wrestling. This is not part of the story. The day of the pay per view, the day before the pay per view, MJF no-showed a meet and greet and was prepared to leave Las Vegas and not show up at the pay-per-view at all. Of course he did, but as reports go, as soon as the match was over, he left and he said he had a lot to think about. So there is a lot of tension with AEW and MJF, a lot of real life tension. Again, this is not a story. So people were giving MJF crap for no showing the meet and greet, as they really should, because he's not fulfilling his obligations. People paid money to see him. So that combined with all the crap that MJF put Wardlow through, combines with all this catharsis and finally seeing him get his ass whooped and getting put down with 10 whole power bombs. On the technical side, it's a 2.5-star match, but this is a different thing that's only gonna apply for this match. Emotionally, it was a 5-star match because you feel good seeing Wardlow finally get his hands on this annoying, smarmy, disgusting individual who's trying to cheat and lie his way out of getting the butt whooping he deserves. So all in all, between the emotional side and the technical side, I would give it a 3-star average. Next up, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, versus Matt and Jeff Hardy, the Hardys. This match felt very weird. They advertised this as a dream match, the first time you see these people fight in AEW. Now, they have fought before in Ring of Honor and in other promotions, but this is indeed the first time they square off together within AEW. And the match that they put on was, in all honesty, a really good match. These are two incredibly talented tag team individuals, two veterans of the business. They know each other very well. They have a lot of good chemistry together, so of course they're going to put on a great match. The thing about it is, you get the feeling that the Young Bucks kind of carried the match the whole time, and they looked way too dominant to lose to the Hardys, who looked really like they looked gassed out and worn down, especially Jeff Hardy. Like, I get the feeling something may have happened in the middle of the match that caused Jeff to look a little out there. Like, maybe he didn't look his best because he was definitely he looked ragged. He definitely looked ragged at some points. This ends on a win for the Hardys, of course, but you really get the feeling that maybe the Bucks should have taken it. But these two teams had a lot of great chemistry together. Great heel work from the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks work great as these smarmy dick heels. The build for it wasn't very strong, but the fact that these two teams have so much history together that you can put them together in AEW without like a lot of build towards the story. They just have that much history and that much chemistry with each other. I would give this match 4.25 stars. Next up, we have the TBS champion Jade Cargill versus Anna Jay. This match, the build for this match felt like nothing. It honestly felt very rushed. Like, this match came in just because Anna Jay comes in to defend Chris from Jade Cargill, and I was I was honestly surprised that Anna Jay even came to save Chris. Like, I tuned out for a little bit, like, wait, what's happening? And then it turns out that Anna Jay is getting a TBS title shot. Now, if this were Anna Jay's first time going against Jade, I would give them more credit, but this is the second time Anna has faced off against Jade. And Anna lost clean the first time, so there's not a lot of there's not a lot of build, not a lot of tension going on with this match because you just get the feeling Jade's going to win again, which she did. But Jade definitely held her own. This is definitely the better match between the two matches that they've already had. They both delivered very well. Jade got a lot of presentation on her entrance. I love that they gave her the elevator now. And in the middle of the match, we got the debut of Stokely. I forget how to pronounce his last name, but for those of you who don't know, he was Malcolm Bivens in WWE managing the Diamond Mine. So having Stokely with Jade, that's money right there. He is an absolutely amazing manager and someone that Jade absolutely needed. And this doesn't factor into the match, but I was definitely excited to see Athena come in right after the match was over. For those of you who don't know, Athena was Ember Moon in the WWE. And this is exciting time for the women's division. Finally, we're getting some more stars, we're getting some more build. The AEW women's division is getting the build that it desperately needs. Jade Cargill versus Anna Jay is going to get 3 stars in my book. It was a fairly average match. Good, but average. Next up on the list, the House of Black, consisting of Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews, versus Death Triangle, consisting of the Bastard Pack, Rey Fenix, and Penta Oscuro. For a feud that lasted almost way too long due to unfortunate circumstances, that being Rey Fenix having a fracture in his arm that left him out for weeks on end. This was a fantastic, fantastic match. It was finally great to see these two trios who had been feuding for almost months on end finally get together. Everybody got a chance to shine. Everybody got their spots in. Everybody got a chance to defy expectations and just churn it out. Brody King was the star in this matchup because for the longest while, they had been booking him as the monster of the group, which he is. He is the muscle of the group. But here they show you that he is more than that. He was cannonballs, topes. He was flying all over the place. He showed you that he is more than just the muscle. Buddy Matthews, in comparison to the rest of the House of Black, I don't think he's gotten a lot to shine, especially since I don't think he's had a singles match yet. But here he got his spots as well. Malachi, he got his kicks in, he's got his licks in. He showed himself to be more than just like a coward who relied on the numbers game. He was ready to square up with all of Death Triangle by himself. The Bastard Pack and Red Phoenix they're two of the best to ever do it. I love them. They're great. They got their licks in. And of course, my boy, my son, my favorite of all time, Penta Oscuro, getting the licks, getting the destroyers. He didn't break any arms, sadly, but he got his shots in, and I am grateful for that. And I am incredibly grateful that he did not take the pin because they've been dropping the ball with Penta the entire time he's been in AEW, except for their reign as tag team champions with Rey Fenix. But I'm very happy with the match. It was very exciting. I'm very happy that we got some resolution with Julia Hart. She finally has come into her own as a member of the House of Black. And after months of like teasing it on Elevation and Dark with her acting all moody and brooding, it's finally good to see that the story has resolved and she is now a member of the House of Black. And I am looking forward to see what she does going forward. The House of Black versus Death Triangle gets 4.5 stars. Next up, we have the men's finals for the Owen Hart tournament, consisting of Adam Cole versus Samoa Joe. These are two incredibly talented individuals. These are two very professional, very great at what they do. Two former NXT champions, two very dominant NXT champions. And they are meeting in the finals of a tournament in which they have barely interacted with each other. The story between them is incredibly weak because they have not had enough time with each other in AEW. Like Samoa Joe, from the time he was signed to this match, has not been a lot of time compared to the time Adam Cole has been there. And they do not have a lot of beef with each other in AEW. You could argue that some of the beef from NXT carried over to here, but this is a story purely focused on AEW. It was a very technically sound match. Very, very good. They had a lot of good spots. The only thing that I would complain about is Adam Cole, in his entire time with AEW, he's been doing a lot of cheating to win, a lot of interferences, a lot of dick punching, and it gets to be obnoxious, especially because Adam Cole is one of the most talented wrestlers in the world. And to see him resort to these tactics, it feels a little underwhelming. There's also some story with the fact that Adam Cole is a big fan of Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels and the Hart family have historically not gotten along very well. So to have someone who is a big fan of Shawn Michaels win the Owen Hart tournament, it can leave a bad taste in some people's mouths. This match gets 3.75 stars. Next, we have Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, versus Ruby Soho in the women's finals of the Owen Hart tournament. I would argue that this is better than the previous finals, at least in terms of story, because Ruby Soho and Britt Baker do have a lot of history together going all the way back to Arthur Ashe at AEW Grand Slam. So these two have legitimate beef with each other. These two have a lot of history. There were a few botched moves here and there, but other than that, these two are very technically talented individuals. They have a lot of technique, they have a lot of talent, so it was a good match. Again, I am not satisfied with the winner as I was with Adam Cole winning, because for the video packages with this match in particular, and going up to the tournament, you see how much of an impact Owen Hart had on Ruby Soho's life. And Ruby Soho talks a lot about how much Owen Hart means to her. Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, does not have that luxury. She has not had anything nice to say about Owen Hart at all throughout the entire tournament. I'm positive she respects him and she respects the Hart family, but she has had nothing nice to say at all. And it hurts to see somebody who Owen Hart meant so much to lose, especially after getting such an amazing entrance with the band Rancid performing her theme song. She got a lot of energy, she got a lot of money put into her entrance and a lot of money put into presentation, but unfortunately Ruby did not get the win. And this is unfortunate in addition to the fact that Britt throughout the tournament has had not great wins. Like her win over Toni Storm did not go over well with the audience, and it really does feel like AEW is revolving their women's division around Britt Baker, which is unfortunate because they have a roster stacked with very talented women that's growing every day, every week. So this match for Britt Baker versus Ruby Soho, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Next up, we have American Top Team consisting of Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, and Paige Van Zant versus the team of Frankie Kazarian, Sammy Guevara, and Ty Conti, with the condition that if Frankie, Sammy, and Ty lose, then Sammy and Frankie can no longer challenge for the TNT Championship, which Scorpio Sky holds. First off, I want to talk about Paige Van Zant because this is her pro wrestling debut, and she was able to perform well. She knew her moves, and she was able to do them well. She was able to sell well. She's still rather green, but this is her first match, so I'm able to forgive that, and I'm willing to bet that she will get better as time goes on. But for her first ever match, I commend her for it. That being said, the story of Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, Frankie Kazarian, Sammy Guevara, and Dan Lambert is one of the worst things AEW has ever done. Like, this isn't even worse by AEW standards because that would still be good. No, this is just flat out bad. Everybody in this feud looks terrible. Sammy and Ty, they have heat, but it's go away heat, which means that we don't want to see you on screen. We're not booing you because you're good at being heels, you're good at being bad guys, like the Young Bucks are or like MJF is. We're booing you because we don't want to see you perform, period. And Frankie Kazarian is pulling the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But then that still doesn't make sense because you're still going along with all the nonsense that Sammy is doing with American Top Team, who are themselves heels because they still they still act like heels. Like Dan Lambert still calls women whores, which they really need to put a cap on because sexism, you don't need to be sexist to be a good heel. And we've reached the point where people are cheering for Dan calling women whores. Like when he called Ty Conti or Brandy Rhodes prostitutes, people were cheering. And that's not a good look at all. But aside from that, the TNT title, ever since Sammy won it off of Cody in Cody's last match with AEW, it's been on a downward spiral. These two lost their charisma. They're both really talented individuals, but the story with this feud is absolute garbage. It does not need to be on pay-per-view. That being said, all five of these people, along with Paige, who is it is her first match, so I want to put her aside for a bit. Ethan, Sky, Frankie, Ty, and Sammy, they're all talented individuals, so of course they're going to put on a technically proficient match. It was better than I expected it to be, but my expectations were already so low that anything could have outperformed what I expected the match to be. It was a crap story, but at the very least, a good match followed. American Top Team versus Frankie Kazarian, Sammy Guevara, and Ty Conti gets 3 stars. Next up, we have Kyle O'Reilly versus Darby Allin. Now, the build for this match was also really poor. It was just the icon Sting was injured, and in kayfabe, which means in the story, Kyle O'Reilly is responsible, so Darby Allin wants revenge. Now, this is a match with this type of build. It could have just aired on Dynamite, or it could have aired on Rampage, or it could have aired on the pre-show. Because it had incredibly weak booking. It was just an excuse to have a match. That being said, it was a fantastic match. It was a show-stealing match. Kyle O'Reilly and Darby Allin are incredibly talented individuals. They're incredibly smooth workers. And Kyle pulled out a lot of really great counters to a lot of Darby's stuff, like grabbing him in the middle of a tope to put him in a sleeper. That was an incredibly amazing spot. Or catching him off a coffin drop into an armbar. It was an amazing, technically proficient match, but it just didn't need to be on pay-per-view. If the story was a little bit stronger, this could have easily been a 5-star match. But as it stands, Kyle O'Reilly and Darby Allin, based solely on their in-ring work, is going to get 4.75 stars out of me. Next up, we have Thunder Rosa, the AEW Women's Champion, versus the challenger, Serena Deeb. Now, this is another match that really delivered despite the poor build. Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa, to me, their promos aren't as strong as their in-ring game, especially with Serena Deeb. She is amazing in the ring. She is very technically proficient, and she has a very submission-heavy game that made this match feel different than a lot of other matches tonight. Just her promo game is absolutely, it's weaker than her in-ring style, along with Rosa's promos being weaker than her in-ring style. I like that Thunder Rosa was able to pull off some submissions as well, show Serena Deeb that she is more than what is expected of her, and she's able to match mat for mat what Serena Deeb can do. This is a very well done women's title match. I'm going to give Thunder Rosa versus Serena Deeb 4.25 stars. Next up, we have the Jericho Appreciation Society, consisting of Chris Jericho, Matt Menard, Angela Parker, Jake Hager, and Daniel Garcia, versus the Blackpool Combat Club and LAX, consisting of Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, Eddie Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz. This match was absolutely wild, absolutely chaotic, and I loved every single second of it. The term Anarchy in the Arena, I expected it to just be, oh, it's a 5-on-5 with no rules. But things absolutely hit the fan, and it was just violence on violence on violence, blood on blood on blood. The ring was destroyed. People were going everywhere, spots on ladders, spots on tables, spots on barbed wire, fire extinguishers, and it was fantastic. And the fact that John Moxley's theme song of Wild Thing was playing for like the first 8 minutes before Chris Jericho cut it off, it just adds to the chaos. It was incredibly chaotic in the best of ways. In my opinion, it was probably the best mix of sports entertainment and pro wrestling because you had the entertainment aspect with, like I said, Moxley's theme song playing throughout the whole thing and all of like the quick camera cuts to all the other people, but you have the violence of pro wrestling and the technical aspect of it all that makes for a really good match. If there is one problem that I have with it, it's the fact that, like I said, there are a lot of camera cuts because everybody is everywhere. They are all over the arena. So we're constantly cutting to this person, to that person, to him, and to him. And it feels like not everybody in this match got equal footing when it came to spots. And we were struggling to keep up with everything. It feel like it would have been better if they would have condensed everybody to like the general area so that way we would have had a good view of all the chaotic violence. But as it stands, it was still really good. I just wish that we could have had a way to keep things focused. I am not satisfied with the winners. I am not a fan of the Jericho Appreciation Society. I think they're a bunch of goons, and I hate the fact that he's trying to bring sports entertainment, quote unquote, into AEW when his brand of sports entertainment is full of crap. Especially since there are people within AEW that are doing sports entertainment miles better than Jericho are, like Danhausen. I'm going to give the Jericho Appreciation Society versus the Blackpool Combat Club and LAX 4.5 stars. Next up, our co-main event, Jurassic Express, consisting of Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, our AEW Tag Team Champions, face off against Team Taz, consisting of Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, and Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, also known as Swerve in Our Glory. This is tag team wrestling in its finest. These six individuals work incredibly well off each other. Everybody worked smooth. Everybody was able to show the audience their stuff. There was a lot of little character moments where they interacted with each other that helped make this match stand out. And it was just incredible tag team wrestling, incredible choreography, incredible character work. Easily the best match of the night for me. I don't hate the fact that Jurassic Express won, but I'm going to be absolutely honest. I was rooting for either Team Taz or Swerve in Our Glory because those two teams are oozing with charisma and talent, and I would have loved to see them have the belts. They're going to be champions eventually. For any of those four men are going to end up as champions in AEW very, very soon. This is a 5-star match for me. Finally, our main event, CM Punk versus the AEW champion Hangman Adam Page. It was a very well told story, very good wrestling, two incredibly talented individuals going at it. CM Punk versus Adam Page gets 4 stars. And I'm going to get crucified by the wrestling community for saying this. I do not like CM Punk as AEW champion. I hated the fact that CM Punk became AEW champion. Ever since the Eddie Kingston feud, I have been incredibly low on CM Punk. CM Punk, I can't gel with him. I can't vibe with him. There is something about him that puts me off a lot. And what Eddie Kingston and MJF had to say about him, I feel inclined to agree with. Like, yes, CM Punk is an incredibly talented individual. Yes, CM Punk is an incredibly professional worker. Yes, WWE misused him and treated him like absolute crap, and he is right to feel like he shouldn't wrestle anymore after working in such a toxic work environment. But the fact of the matter is that did WWE really mess you up so bad that you couldn't look at the business for 7 years? You couldn't even watch pro wrestling for 7 years? And all it took to get you to come back was somebody with a fatter wallet than Vince's, but knew what they were doing? Like you could have become a part of pro wrestling was Ring of Honor, which where you came from, or New Japan or TNA or Impact, or you could have worked the indies, but it took somebody who was able to afford you to get you to come back. Like, for all CM Punk's talk about being in love with the business and being for the people, he feels like a very business centric individual. It really does feel like CM Punk is all about the money. I am sorry to say that, and you can crucify me all you want, but I sincerely feel like CM Punk is not as in the business as he says he is. Like he is in this for the money. He could be as in love with the business or in love with the people as he says he is, I don't know. I don't know CM Punk personally. I could be wrong. But the fact of the matter is that we have people in AEW who are in this business because they love it. They are not in it for the money. Jon Moxley is on the record saying that I am in this business because I love it, because he is set for life after WWE. Bryan Danielson, similarly, set for life after WWE. He is here doing this because he loves to do it. Eddie Kingston never had a chance to make it to the big leagues before, but he busted his ass for 30 years because he loves doing it. But because how WWE treated CM Punk, which again, they treated him horribly. I am not underselling the fact that WWE treated CM Punk horribly. He left the business for 7 years, and all it took for him to come back was Tony writing a check. I am not down for Summer of Punk. I am not here for Summer of Punk. And I'm hoping that the next big heel, be it MJF, Ricky Starks, whoever, takes that belt off of CM Punk as soon as possible. I feel nothing watching CM Punk be champion. None of this ruined the match for me. It was again a very good match, a 4-star match. CM Punk is a very talented wrestler. Adam Page is a very talented wrestler. The two work off each other very well, but I am not looking forward to the future of CM Punk as AEW World Champion. With that rant out of the way, all in all, I'm going to give AEW's Double or Nothing 2022 4.25 stars. It was a fantastic show, a great show, a lot of weird booking going on, a lot of winners that I wouldn't have chosen. I'm not satisfied with quite a few of the winners. A lot of stories that didn't need to go to pay-per-view, but when you get right down to it, AEW does what AEW will always do. Deliver. They always deliver a good show. Even if the booking may not seem as strong, even if the results may not seem as strong, AEW has and will continue to deliver. My name is Crit. Thank you for listening.